Hi everyone, Coldam here with another Vox Immortalis Commentary guide. This video is for the Keeping It in the Family achievement, which is part of the Nefarian encounter in Blackwing Descent. And as always, we're doing the 10-man version. So before I get into the achievement specifics, I should mention that if you're watching this and you think that this first phase seems really strange, and you haven't seen our normal strategy guide for how to do Nefarian, I highly suggest you go watch that. Otherwise, this will feel really weird how we do this. But that said, basically, we use a single tank on both dragons until the Bone Warriors are deanimated, and then we separate the dragons from there. And it just turned out to be more stable for us. So that's what we do. You will notice I have some thread issues here, just because I'm not very geared, and this first time I've tanked this fight, so try to ignore those. Normally that wouldn't be part of the strategy, obviously, but we have it under control. So anyway, onto the achievement itself. It requires that you defeat Nefarian, just like normal, after getting Nefarian's health below 50% before the second phase of the fight ends, before the lava phase ends. So basically, the timing has to be that Nefarian's health is below 50% before the lava starts to drain out of the room during that phase. If you have that, then you should be okay. However, there's a few tricks that you wouldn't really know about this fight if you didn't try the achievement or just read it somewhere or whatever, that we discovered a few weeks ago. So the first thing is that the second phase has 3 triggers that will cause it to end. And it doesn't matter which trigger happens first. Once one of those happens, the phase starts to end. And the other ones don't matter. So the first trigger is to simply defeat all the pillar adds during the flight phase. The second trigger is just duration. The phase has a maximum duration that it will last. And most people assume it's that or killing the adds that trigger the phase. But there's another trigger, which is if you deal 15% of Nefarian's health and damage to him during the second phase, that also will end the phase prematurely. So any one of those 3, whichever happens first, causes that phase to end. And if you're not below 50%, then you have to wipe and try again. So because you can only do 15% total damage to Nef during that phase, that means to get the achievement credit, you have to get Nef below 65% health before the second phase begins. To do that, you have to burn Nef from the 70% mark below 65 in a very, very short time span. And as you should know from normal, this is because every time electrocute goes off, the electrical charge on Onyxia goes up a big chunk. Enough that if the third electrocute lands, the 70% electrocute, Onyxia will one-shot the raid. So our strategy was to have DPS focus on an Oni just like normal, and stop at a very low percentage health. You'll have to figure this out for your own DPS, obviously. But the value is low enough that when the time comes, our Death Knight is able to, he's the tank on Oni, he's able to finish her off by himself. The rest of the DPS can then focus completely on Nef. So at 80% health on Nef, we blow Lust, and you'll see there, once we hit 70, and that crackle begins, our Death Knight has just a few seconds to finish off Oni. As soon as she dies, that's what triggers Nef to go to the center and start taking off. So you have that very short window in which to finish Oni off just before electrocute and then burn Nef below 65. So you can see there we got him below around 63 point something before he actually left the ground, and that's what you need to do. So now we're into the second phase, and for this our general strategy was to kill 2 of the chromatic prototypes quickly. So it's actually the other 2 platforms that you're not seeing that get killed off. And this one is just a healer, myself as a tank, and our balanced druid. So our balanced druid does a little bit of damage on the prototype, and then he'll switch to Nef once the raid is sort of healed up and stable, because right now Nef is a pretty low health. He's 61 or 62% because we burned him so much. So you want to be careful that you don't push him over and electrocute right after you're going into this phase. Obviously, there's a lot of damage from the lava dot still happening. But once your healers are comfortable, then you can push that electrocute And since you're only going to get 2 electrocutes during this phase, use whatever cooldowns you have to soak up the damage and help your healers. So things like the Mastery Resist Trinket from Tolbarad are very, very good for this fight, because the 1 minute cooldown lets you basically do it for both of these casts on this phase. So you can see the other prototypes are getting killed off, and this one we're kind of ignoring for a while. So our plan is to get the other 2 dead, and then get Nef close to 50%, and then push this that final prototype that's right here to around 20% health, so that he is within kill range of us. And then push Nef over 50%. That gives us the achievement credit as long as we're successful the rest of the fight. And then we finish off this prototype as the lava is draining. So pretty straightforward stuff. As I mentioned, you can only do 15% total damage to Nef during this phase. So once Nef hits about 48% health, the phase will end. And if you look kind of to the bottom right of my character, you can see I have bigwigs bars showing Berserk in phase 2, and you can see the timer for phase 2. So if we didn't do 15% health and we didn't kill this prototype, that's how long this phase would last. But because we're actually doing the damage to Nef, then it will end quite a bit before that phase 2 timer expires. So you can see here we just triggered the next electrocute. Nef is now below 50%. And now we're finishing off this prototype. The Balanced Druid will switch to him here in a moment. And so that's really it. From this point on, the fight is just like you would do it on normal. But actually quite a bit easier, since Nef is so much lower going into this phase. So there's not much else to say. Unfortunately, now the video will be really boring. But I think the key is really just figuring out your transition period at the first phase, because it's a very, very small window you have in which you want to kill Oni as close as possible to that 3rd electrocute, but right before it happens. So as low as you can get Oni without actually killing her, so that your tank can handle it, that'd be the best thing. And yeah, so you can kind of just watch the rest of this video. It's just like normal. And that's the Keeping It in the Family achievement. Good luck, and thanks for watching.